Okay, today we're talking about 5-6 parallel and perpendicular lines. Our SWABAT is to determine whether lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither, and to write equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. Some vocabulary first though. Parallel. These are two non-vertical lines are going to be parallel if and only if they have the same slope and different y-intercepts. Also, vertical lines are going to be parallel if they have different x-intercepts. So vertical lines, remember, are the lines that just go straight up and down. They're going to be parallel if they have different x-intercepts instead. And then, for example, right here we have y equals 1 half x plus 3 is parallel to y equals 1 half x minus 7y, because the slope of this line, let's see if you can see it, the slope of this line is 1 half, and the slope of this line is also 1 half. Same slopes, therefore they are parallel. Perpendicular lines, if you remember, these are lines that form a right angle. Perpendicular lines are lines that form a right angle. So, how do we know if lines are perpendicular? Well, they are perpendicular if their slopes are opposite reciprocals. Opposite reciprocals. That means the product of them will be -1. Always, 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 a vertical line will always be horizontal, will always be perpendicular to a horizontal line. Because here is a vertical line, here's a horizontal line, they're always going to make a right angle. So those are always going to be perpendicular. So if you have an equation where it's just h equals b and x equals some number a, those will always be perpendicular. Now, with regard to the slopes, kind of important to know that it's the opposite reciprocal. What we're going to do is we want to flip it and switch it. So you're flipping it, that's the reciprocal part. So if it's 1 half, it's 2 over 1. And you are switching the sign. It's the opposite. So instead of positive, it's negative. Let's look at an example. This is y equals -2x plus 5. This slope is -2. The slope of this line is 1 half. Well, what happens if we flip this and switch it? Let's put it over 1. The reciprocal would be 1 half. It would be negative, but you have to switch the sign also. So it'd be positive 1 half. How do I know that I'm right? 1, because I'm the teacher, but also I can do -2 times 1 half, because when I multiply these two, the product of their slopes should be -1. So put this under 1, cancel, cancel, -1. That checks out wonderfully. All right, let's look at an example. We're going to be writing an equation of a line that passes through the given point and is parallel to the graph of the given equation. So parallel, that tells me right off the bat it's going to have the same slope. Okay, you have a couple of options of how to deal with this. So the first one is given the point 3, 2, and it's parallel to this line. And so first thing you want to do is kind of find out what the slope is. The slope of this line is going to be m equals 3. So the slope of my parallel line will also be 3. The question is, what about that y-intercept? Always, though, I'm going to tell you now, when I write equations of lines in this section, I want them to be in y equals mx plus b. My options, though, are how to get there. So the first way we learned how to do this, given the slope and a point, was to just plug in the x and the y into y equals mx plus b. So instead of y, I'll write 2 equals m, which is 3, times x, which is 3, plus b. We got to find that out. So 2 equals 9 plus b. Alright, that looks great. Let's subtract 9 on both sides. -7 is equal to b, and I know that my m was 3. So now I have everything I need. Y equals, instead of mx, 3x plus b, which means -7. Alright, two things I need, the slope and the y-intercept for that one. Now, the other way that you learned was to use point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Sometimes it's a little bit faster to go from here to slope intercept form, which is what we need. So let's see if that works for us. x1, y1. So I'm going to have y minus 6 equals m, which is 1/4, because my slope there is 1/4, and I know that I have the same slope, times x minus -8. And then because it's negative and negative, I'm just going to make this plus. Okay, let's distribute. So 1/4 times x is 1/4 x. 1/4 times 8. Well, 4 goes into 8 positive 2 times. Now we just get y by itself by adding 6 and adding 6. Y equals 1 over 4x plus 8. This is now in slope-intercept form. Question is, do I care which method you used? Absolutely not. No one cares as long as you get the same answer. So if you prefer to use y equals mx plus b, go ahead and do that. But if you prefer point slope form, you're welcome to do that as well. Okay, your next example is determine whether the graphs of the equations are parallel, which means that they will have the same slope, so m equals m. Perpendicular, that's going to be m equals 1 over m. So we flip it and switch it. It has to be opposite sign and flipped, or neither. It's none of those two things. Okay, so let's label this as line 1, and this will be line 2. The slope of line 1 is 4. We like that one because they did it for us. Now for line 2, however, we got to make some changes because I need to get y by itself. So I'm going to add 4x and add 4x, and I have y is equal to 4x minus 13. The slope of line 2 is 4. Because these are the same, these two lines are indeed parallel. Y, same slope. Now part B, I'm also looking at here, and I have y equals 7 over 8, and I have x is equal to -4. Now there's something special about each of these lines. Y equals to 7 over 8, now that's a horizontal line, so I know that when I graph it, it's going to look like this. And when I have x equals -4, I have a vertical line, so when I graph it, it's going to look like this. And we said in the very, very beginning that if we have a horizontal line and a vertical line, they are automatically going to be perpendicular because they'll form this right angle right there. So looking at this without doing any more work, I'm going to say that these are perpendicular. Why? My reasoning here is because I have a horizontal line and a vertical line. That's always going to happen. If you have just x equals and just y equals, they're always going to be perpendicular to one another. Okay, part C. I'd love for you now to press pause and then solve for y for this one and tell me what your slope is. And then for this one, we kind of like because my slope of the second line is, this is point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, so my slope is -1/2. Pause and find the slope of this one, and then unpause to check your work with mine or to copy mine. Thanks. Okay, so there's my work here. I subtracted 3x from both sides, and then I divided everything by 6, and I got y equals -1/2 x plus 2. My slope here was -1/2, and my slope here is -1/2, so these are indeed parallel because they have the same slope. What would make them perpendicular would be if this was 2 instead. And then, yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Let that go. The next thing we're going to do is to write an equation of the line that passes through the given point. So that's similar to what we just did in the first example. But now instead of being parallel, it's perpendicular. So they don't have the same slope, but I'm going to use my opposite reciprocal. That's when we're going to flip and switch. Excuse my handwriting. Okay, so the point is 3, -6, and I need the slope of this line. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract x and subtract x. So I have y is equal to -x minus 4. So my slope would be -1, but in order to flip it and switch it, I need a fraction. So the reciprocal would be 1 over -1, but I also have to switch it. So this is now positive. So you switch the sign. If it was negative, it becomes positive, and you flip it. So 1 over positive 1 is equal to just 1. So my slope of my perpendicular line is 1. Okay, I have my slope and I have a point. You could either use point slope form, or you can use what we just did before with slope intercept. Whichever one. I'm going to put negative 6 equals 1 times x, which is 3, plus b. So negative 6 equals, looking here, I just chose y equals mx plus b. So equals 3 plus b, minus 3 minus 3, negative 9 is equal to b. So my equation is y equals 1x minus 9. However, if you know better, which I know you do, you won't put the 1 in front of there. You just put y equals x minus 9. Wonderful. So next one, you're given a point, and the slope, this is in point slope form, we kind of like that. The slope right now is negative 2 over 3. The perpendicular slope, I'm going to flip it and switch it. So it's 3 over 2, and it's going to be positive because it was negative before. And then we have our point, negative 8, 3. I'm going to go ahead, since this was in point slope, and go ahead and use point slope form. So I have y minus, this is x1, y1. So minus 3 equals m, which is 3 over 2, times x minus negative 8. And then these become a positive because there's two negative signs. So y minus 3 is equal to 3 over 2x. And then 3 over 2, I'll show my work, times 8 over 1. 2 becomes 1. This becomes 4, so I get 12. Excuse me. Then I'm going to add 3 and add 3. Y is equal to 3 over 2x plus 15. And there you have it. Thank you so much.